Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of How Do I Start This? My name is Tlovespeaksss. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. We talk all things hip hop and black culture on this channel. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so that you can be updated when I drop new content. So today we're going to talk about JID's new album. I know people have done reviews. You know, people tend to do reviews like right when the album comes out. But I just kind of wanted to like sit with this album for a little bit because this is not an album I think that, you know, you just listen to one time and you just catch everything. I think JID took like his time and crafted this, not just like as an artist, but for the listener. So I wanted to like sit with it before I reviewed it. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. So I first want to just start with the album itself. I took detailed notes, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. I just want to like praise JID. Like I don't think, you know, he's receiving enough praise or as much praise as he should be getting. This is a phenomenal album. The lyricism is impeccable. And I know I've seen some people say that they felt like it wasn't as cohesive in comparison to the Forever Story, but in my opinion, it was incohesively cohesive, if that makes sense. It was very versatile, and I think that it was very deeply regional, deeply Atlanta, which I appreciated. It almost felt like I was listening to what it would be like if Outkast is Aquemini and T.I.'s Urban Legend, if those two albums like were like had a child, I felt like it would be God Does Like Ugly, God Does Like Ugly. I think that the incorporation of spirituality, and you know, we're seeing this revival of like spirituality being talked about in hip hop among mainstream rappers, right? We know, Kendrick had a record where, you know, he rewrote the Devil's Story on Reincarnated. Clip's whole album was around the theme of God, letting God sort him out. And then now we have JID telling us that God does like ugly. And I think that's very important in a time where people feel lost and people feel, the world is just like in total chaos. I think that JID did a great job of reminding us on this album that in all our imperfections and in all the ugliness that is out in the world and even the ugliness that's in ourselves, God still loves us and we should still strive to be better. There were 15 songs on this album, and when I first listened to this album, I was really like, I know everybody was like moved by Community, because that's the song with the Clips feature, and it's a brilliant song, but I think that was like off first listen, that was the song that everybody gravitated to. But then when I kept listening, I was immediately drawn to Of Blue, K-Word, and then VCRs, and then it got to a point where I just like literally loved every song on the album. Not that I didn't before, but it's just like I couldn't choose. So I think one thing that JID did effectively throughout this album is not only, you know, the lyricism and the storytelling, but I really love the way that he used not only his beats, but his featured artists as instruments, right? And so if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I dislike beat switches. I think that a lot of artists use beat switches to kind of cover up for the fact that they can't hold the listener's attention with their skill, whether that's with rapping or singing or whatever the case may be. And I know we live in a 2 minute and 30 second attention span economy, so I think that is why a lot of people try to incorporate different elements into their music. And so for that reason, I typically don't like it, but I think JID used not only the beat switches, but his voices and the voices of the featured artists very well, and he used them in a way that not only advanced narrative, but also showed like camaraderie within this hip hop space, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Some examples I have is of You Ugly. That's the opening track, and I remember when I first was listening to it, and I'm like, that can't be West Side Gun, right? Like that's not West Side Gun. Like of course the features were hidden, so I'm like, nah, that's, that's just JID doing something with his voice or whatever. And then of course I went to Twitter and totally turned out it was Westside Gunn. And I really liked how JID was rapping and he used Westside for like kind of like the ad-libs, but it was more like using Westside for like the energy that he conveys on tracks. And that paired with JID's like articulate and intricate lyricism on that track, I just thought it was completely brilliant. And in my notes I wrote I liked how JID used the beat switch to kind of illustrate that duality of the beautiness and the ugly, or beautiness, I just made up a word, but the duality of the beauty and the ugliness that we as people endure and go through in life. And despite all of that, like Westside Gunn's in the background kind of yelling, you ugly, but like he's still saying like, and regardless of that, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna still be fly, all that type of stuff. And so I just really think that it was a solid open, like just a very strong open. And then also to like open your album with another loved artist who brought energy and like charisma to the track. I just loved it. 10 out of 10 for me, and I was sat for the rest of the album. So the album then follows to go on with Glory, which is the second track, and I love that. I personally love when rappers incorporate choirs or sermons into the music. I think another artist that does that really well is Roddy Ricch. He does that very, very well. So I was really happy to see JID kind of take that same, and not that JID hasn't done something like this before, but I was just really happy to hear this track, and he did it very well. And I think I wrote that this song was important and the incorporation of the choir was important, because I think like within hip hop, I just saw a tweet before I even started recording that someone said, I'll never be Christian enough to the point where I'm listening to gospel rap. And I kind of chuckled at it because like, unfortunately, gospel rap does kind of have like this, I don't even know the right words. I believe in God. I love God, but I don't know. Gospel rap for me just kind of has like this air of cringiness to it. Not all artists, but just as a whole, it has this cringiness to it that it's like they're trying to do one thing. Like, it just doesn't like vibe with me, right? I guess it doesn't vibe with me because sometimes I feel like it comes off as like too self-righteous and like holier than thou. And I think that can like, but you're like doing that over trap beats, and it's just like, well, what are you trying to prove? Long story short, I think that this surge of rappers using choirs and incorporating themes of like faith into their music actually is important, and shows that like, hey, like just because we are in a secular world, or we live in hell pretty much on earth, we're not irredeemable, right? And so I think JID even talked about how he like had to go through steps to get the song cleared by the choir that was a part of the song. And I think that there's typically a separation between Christian rap and hip hop for the reasons that I just laid out. But in this album and in this song, Glory in particular, JID he bridges that gap. And I think that he does it very, very well. I'm not going to talk about Community because I feel like that's probably like been talked about ad nauseum at this point, but I will say that I skipped a song. I like the song Work. Again, on that song, he kind of like paints a picture that is like distinctly Atlanta. I wrote that he mentioned something about the 1950s and driving down, is it 85 or 285? He was really descriptive about like where he was in Atlanta, and I just thought that was kind of like refreshing to hear. Because JID is so talented, he gets paired against Kendrick, he gets paired against J. Cole, he gets paired against all these great lyricists, which is fine because he's an amazing lyricist. But I really liked how in that song, and then also in the following songs in Community, he talked about Stone Mountain and Lithonia. He's making his claim like, yeah, I'm one of the top guys, and I'm from Atlanta, right? And in Atlanta, you know, it's not just the trap music or whatever. Like we lyrical with it too, and so I really like that. Yeah, and so like I said, I loved pretty much every song on this album. So far, my favorite songs are "Glory," "Of Blue," "Skate." I was so shocked when I heard Sierra. I'm like, is that Sierra? Like, but it could only be Sierra. Like, she has a very unique voice. And so, and that's another thing we'll talk about in a minute. I really liked the features he incorporated, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the R&B section of this album, I personally enjoyed. I know some people said, I think I had a couple mutuals say, yeah, it kind of lost them a little bit, but I enjoyed that part, and I enjoyed it because JID showed that he can make a song, and he can make a song across genres. I love the song that he did with, I think, Jesse Reyes, and I like the one with Ty Dolla $ign. I call him Six Lack, but his name is Black. I like that one too. And I think that with the singers, JID did a very good job at like matching their energy as well. But with all that said, he incorporated a lot of brilliant artists on this album, but the best feature to me, hands down, was Vince Staples. And I'm not like an avid Vince Staples listener. Like, I actually like him as a personality. Like, I just think that he's like a dope person, and like he's like good at comedy and stuff like that. But as far as his music, I haven't like really been like tuned in like that all the way. So hearing him rap was, you know, for the first time in a while, because I didn't listen to his last album, although I know that it was good. But yeah, Vince rapping was amazing. I really liked the way that they complimented each other on the track. So I think they had like a number scheme where they counted to 10, and JID started it, and then Vince did the same thing. And I just thought that was really important. Oh, and that's what I wanted to say too. JID showing such strong camaraderie with all the artists that he incorporated onto this project is so important at a time where I think for some of us, and I don't want to pretend shocked, but I think we are now in a time where people are kind of looking at hip hop as, you know, it's only about rap beef or rap battles, right? And while that is and I know I contribute to that, but while that is an important part of the genre, I think that JID did a good job at like going kind of outside of that framework and saying, hey, I'm gonna rap with some of the, you know, the most immaculate spitters, and I'm gonna do it well, and we're gonna match each other's energy, and we're still gonna, like, you know, have that camaraderie as well, and show that, you know, when you're rapping against other top lyricists, it doesn't always have to be like a you versus me thing. It can be a us versus, you know, them thing, right? And so I thought that was really cool. I think he should be commended for that in a climate where it's a little bit chaotic. If I had to pick a song where JID, where I feel like he was rapping at his best, I think it's between Of Blue and K-Word. I'm actually like torn. I don't know if I can pick between those two songs, because I just felt like the rapping on both of those songs were like elite. Those two songs for me were like his highest level of rapping, I think. Something else I did too is I did go back and listen to the Forever Story, just to kind of like reorient myself with, like, you know, the last project that JID dropped. And I know there's been a lot of talk about, like, you know, where this ranks among the Forever Story. And I just want to take this time to say the Forever Story is brilliant. We all know that. I think the Forever Story is held as like his project, right? Like every rapper has that classic. And I think some people may say DiCaprio. It depends on who you're talking to, but I think we are all in agreement that the Forever Story was just like perfect. And so I went back and listened to it, trying to see like how I would rank between that and God Does Like Ugly. And I don't know. I think that it's really hard to compare the two. Shout out to my frat brother, Vaughn. He was talking about how he thought the Forever Story was like, I think he said it was like a more cohesive listen. I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, Vaughn. You can, but I think we had a conversation about this. But you were saying it was like a more cohesive listen, and I someone else said this too to me, and so I get the point of view that God Does Like Ugly may not be as cohesive as the Forever Story, but I personally thought that it wasn't supposed to be. And so like he's literally talking about like, you know, the burden that we carry between, you know, trying to do right, trying to do, or, you know, having to succumb to temptation or whatever the case may be, and all the struggles that we go through. And he frames that in the lens of religion. And so I think what he was getting at was that we are complex beings, right? We're complex individuals that endure complex situations. And so we react to those situations in different ways that won't be perfect. And so because he's like using a religious framework to do that, I just didn't think that it needed to be cohesive. I thought that he displayed that duality brilliantly. And I know some people were caught off guard because he was like rapping, I think like from You Ugly on to like Skate, and then when he get into the R&B bag and then he go back to the rapping bag, that didn't bother me. Like I liked it. I thought that he matched the tempo of the album. I think he did very well. So yeah, maybe not the most cohesive listen for some people, but I did not feel like that. I think that it was fine, and I actually like the way that he organized the track list. So with that being said, I slightly still give the edge to Forever Story because it is just compelling. So yeah, I slightly still give the edge to Forever Story just because songs like Crack Sandwich and Sister Nim, Surround Sound, like those are like songs that, you know, just deeply up. Cody Blue, like those are just songs that like, you know, like resonate with me, like, you know, still. But maybe it'll take some time for us to really see. But yeah, I still have the Forever Story kind of edging out God Does Like Ugly. But what I will say is that this album just continues to prove the fact that JID is like here, like he's one of them ones. He's top of the top. And that's not like, I think most of us have like known that, like in hip hop, we've known that. But I think that like for people who are just maybe getting tuned into lyrical hip hop or whatever, he would be like, you know, the new person to watch. And he's not new, but you know what I mean. Like I feel like we've been in this cycle where we're stuck between rappers from 10 to 15 years ago. And I think that's also just because the way that we are used to dealing with celebrity, and that way is changing, and that's a whole other video. But long story short, I think this album solidifies JID as a leader, a leader in hip hop culture, and one who will be fun to watch in his career. And yeah, I just really love this album. Really briefly want to talk about why I think that this is album of the year. And I know y'all gonna be like, I think we're talking about two things when we talk about album of the year. We're talking about the calendar year, you know, what is the rap album of 2025? What is the rap album of the Grammy calendar year, which was like August 30th, 2024 to August 30th, 2025. So for a lot of people, they're still holding on to GNX, and I'm not saying that I'm just saying that, you know, that's kind of the frame of thinking. But I think the way that I think of it is like, I like to think of the album of the year as a metaphor, right? A metaphor for, and I say that JID's album is album of the year because I think I think he meets all the criteria. Now, whether he gets the award or not, it doesn't matter to me because it's not going to take away the way I feel about this album. But I just want to use this time to validate it as album of the year because it has amazing lyricism, it has amazing song structure. He did a wonderful job at incorporating his peers, you know, not only, you know, from a rapping perspective, but from a singing perspective. And now I'm trying to remember, am I just blending the Forever Story and God Does Like Ugly together? Because I feel like, okay, so I feel like he had skits, but like I'm losing track of where the skits were. But I think like he listening to JID project is like watching a movie. That's kind of how it felt to me. It was different elements, whether he's like, you know, incorporating a skit or whether he's doing something with his voice. He's very creative in that way. And so it's art. Like, it's pure art. Yeah, I think that regardless of whether he gets the award or not, this is definitely album of the year. And I think that it's important for us to say that because, you know, we just saw that we're losing the BET Hip Hop Awards and we're losing the Soul Train Awards, right? I think for those of us who are in these hip hop spaces, it's gonna be important for us to uplift as much of our, you know, artists as we can, right? And so we know that only 5 artists or 5 people can be nominated for that category at the Grammys or whatever. But I'm just trying to say that whether he gets the Grammy or not, he put out an amazing body of work and he absolutely deserves it. So I guess people could just say, oh, you're just saying that he's an album of the year contender. Which, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. But like, I don't know, contender kind of makes it feel like, oh, it was good, but like, you know, that's not, it's still not enough. That's how contender makes me feel. And that's what I'm not saying. I'm saying that I think JID put out a project so strong that he could win the category and it would be deserved if it went that way. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think contender's like, oh yeah, you know, you did good, you know, it's up there. But no, I think it's important to say that it is album of the year, because I think a lot of artists kind of look around and say like, okay, well, you know, like, what else do I need to do, right? I think JID did everything an artist could do in order to win that category, and so that's why I'm saying that it is album of the year. It's not just a contender. So that's pretty much all I have for the video. My only critique that I have of this album has nothing to do with JID and more so to do with Dreamville as a company. This album was so amazing, and I remember, you know, before Clip's album was released, and maybe even before Kendrick's, because we didn't know that it was coming, but we kind of like thought it was coming, so we kind of like hyped ourselves up for GNX, you know. So there was hype for GNX to a degree. We didn't know it would be in GNX, we just knew it would be an album. There was definitely hype for Clip's album, and while there was some hype for JID's album, I just feel like Dreamville could have did more in pushing this album. Like, as much as Clips was an event, this should have been an event for JID. Like, to a degree, it's not fair to compare them because Clips are legends and JID is still, he's a veteran, but he's still like, you know, solidifying himself. So I understand that the scales are going to be different, but I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like Dreamville wasn't like loud about this. I feel like all the hype that was around this album came from JID, which is fine, but I just, like, you know, if he's signed to a label, I would just think that they would, like, I don't know, like, go the extra mile, like, I don't know. And that could just be like my own personal qualms with Dreamville. But I saw that he was doing interviews. I saw that, you know, he was interacting with people on Twitter. He even dropped a pre-lux. Like, we didn't really talk about how dope that is. Like, do you, like, that's so dope, which I listened to, which was, it was really good, right? Like, it's so dope that he's so engaged in the art form that he gave us additional music. I just thought that was dope. And so, yeah, I think JID did his part, but I just think, like, whoever he signed to, Dreamville, whoever, like, they could have did more, because he's literally that guy, and he should be everywhere. Like, this should be playing on the radio. Like, the cut with Jesse Reyes, Don Toliver, the one with Sierra, and then the one with Ty Dolla Sign and Black, all of them should be on the radio. Like, and I'm not a music executive, so I don't know what it takes to get stuff on the radio, but he has like 4 or 5 songs that are radio worthy, that should be on here. So it's no excuses. Y'all can let me know, have you heard these songs on the radio? So if I'm bugging and you have heard this on the radio, let me know. But what I'm saying is, you know, he has 4 or 5 songs that I think could really be like popular with people. And like, what is Dreamville doing? Just kind of like letting him do, I don't know. I won't get into that because I don't know. But that's just my personal opinion. I think that they could have done more marketing. And I do think that like they don't have good marketing overall. And I think that he kind of suffered from that just a little bit. But that's just my own personal thing. But again, my only critique is that I think he did everything that he was supposed to do as an artist, and I really, really, really enjoyed this album. Make sure y'all give this album a spin. Make sure you listen to it. But yeah, so that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your favorite song on the album, what you like listening to. What do you think is the stronger album between Forever Story and God Does Like Ugly? I played them both in my car yesterday, back to back on a long drive, and it was perfect. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.